person goes to medical school to study that particular science, medicine, they study the basic principles of physiology, which are universal. They apply to everybody. If everyone's cells, muscles, and organs were constituted and functioned differently, we'd all be unique physiological entities unto ourselves. And doctors couldn't make diagnoses, perform surgeries, or dispense medicines. It's this fact, the fact that we're all essentially the same anatomically and physiologically, that makes it possible for medical science to exist at all as a viable discipline. Now, the science of exercise, the science of productive bodybuilding exercise, like the science of medicine, is based on the principles of human physiology also. The fact that the basic principles of human physiology are universal, again, is what makes it possible for me to state that there is only one valid theory of training, i.e., one best way to train. It is not my mere opinion that every human being requires intense training to stimulate optimal increases in strength and size. It's a well-established fact beyond debate. Nobody would argue that aerobics is the best way to build muscle. They may not understand it explicitly, but they recognize or sense on some level that the reason for this is that aerobics is too low in intensity to stimulate an optimal increase in strength and size, or any increase in strength or size. It is a well-established fact beyond debate that high-intensity training is an absolute requirement for stimulating increases in strength and size. That's the first principle of the theory of high-intensity training. And because high-intensity training is very, very demanding on the body's limited recovery ability, it follows logically that such training must be brief and infrequent to allow for the production of an increase in strength and size. That's the second part of the theory. In order to allow the body to produce the increase that was stimulated as a result of the training, the workouts have to be brief and infrequent. In other words, bodybuilding is not aerobics. This is the hard part. This is the hard part for most people. Most bodybuilders would find it quite easy to accept the first principle, that you've got to train to failure, that the training has to be very intense. The hard part is in accepting the second two principles, namely that exercise has to be brief and infrequent. They all have in their subconscious the idea that more is better, which is actually an ethical economic principle. More money, more success, i.e. more values, are better than less. You can't take a principle from economics or ethics and apply it to bodybuilding and expect optimal results. That's a logical fallacy known as context switching, taking a principle from one context of knowledge and applying it to another and expecting to get something out of it. Bodybuilding is not aerobics. If your goal is to improve upon your endurance, which is what aerobics is about, then it's appropriate to use the more is better principle, because that's your goal, to be able to do more and more work. Bodybuilding requires the application of a different principle, namely harder is better. And the harder you train, the less time you can or should train. One of my favorite analogies here is with track and field. Are you not familiar with the fact that sprinters always have larger, more muscular thighs and calves than distance runners? Well, if it was the sheer volume of the work that was responsible for inducing muscular growth beyond normal levels of human beings, then distance runners would have tremendously large thighs and calves, when in fact, in every case, they have stringy muscles. They grossly overtrain. Sprinters, the guys who only run 100 to 400 meters very intensely, have tremendously developed legs. They run very, very hard. This prevents them from running for long distances. The longest sprint in Olympic competition is the 400-meter dash. Why isn't there a mile dash? Because no one can run that intensely that long. Likewise with bodybuilding training. When you are training to failure on every set, and you're not resting too long between sets, It's not just that you shouldn't train for long periods, but you literally cannot. No one can. It's in the nature of things.